There was a different treatment between the way the Filipinos were treated and the white workers were. They got better food, better hours, better living conditions. And you know, every once in a while you would get a cannery where it was a notch up or two notches up above some of the other places. But that's because you probably had a foreman who lived in that area and had developed a relationship with the owners. And so he was able, or he was there all the time, so he was able to fix up the bunkhouse. So by the time the men would come. But the working conditions were bad. However, they were better than they were in the 30s. You know, it had gotten progressively better. But still, I would say if they got better, then the conditions for the others had gotten better also. So there was always that catching up kind of a situation. And with the unions, I think what did it, it was really interesting in Seattle. We realized the importance of the union to the Filipino economy because they did provide money, you know, to many of the men here, and at least, but it wasn't the only economy there was. I mean, they were. My dad went to Alaska once, and he was here for 60 years. So the rest of the time he was doing something else, you know, to support us. There were a few men who, for them, every year they'd go to Alaska, just like every year they'd go. And what happened was, a lot of the men who made it a yearly thing were also men who worked in the fields, and so that was the way that they had they were able to work all year round. So we were, when you talk about migrant workers, Filipinos were very unique migrant workers. They would do the fields they start getting the fields ready and do the planting, then go to Alaska in May, June, July, August, you know, start coming in. Not everybody would go at the same time. They would send out crews depending on where you were in Alaska, because the fish runs down. And so the further north you are, the earlier you went up there. And then once they came back, then they would start again. They would come and they would go to the fields and gather the crops and then start all over again. So for many of the men, the people that we called uncles, they may have had two addresses. They had an address down in California and they may have had an address up here. So people knew how to get in touch with them. But it was a case that was the life of many men. But now if there were 50,000 of us, or if maybe more of us, and only 10,000 could go to Alaska, it tells you that the majority of the men were not going to Alaska. And this is the problem that I have many times, is when people seem to say that all Filipinos just went to Alaska. It's not true. They went to Alaska sometime, you know, in their life here, just like Fred went to Alaska for 4 years. But the rest of the time he was doing other things. I mean, but the other kinds, I think people should ask, what else did they do? They worked in the kitchens. I mean, they were busboys, they were pantrymen, they were dishwashers.
Basically
they were
menial
cooks.
jobs.